Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dish on Dogs. I'm your host, Mike Gould, affectionately known sometimes as the mayor of Hounds Town, USA. For those of you who don't know what Hounds Town, USA, Google it. It's a fully interactive pet care franchise. As always, the Dish on Dogs, as it implies, we talk about dogs. Most often, it's about dog behavior, dog management, problems you're having at home with your dog, the jumping, the humping, and dumping, which are very simple problems to resolve, and most of our podcasts are devoted to dog behavior. The last couple of episodes, we want to kind of move into a different area, and that is the pet care business. So as you know, Hounds Town is a franchise, and franchising is somewhat of a very unique business concept that it's really blown up in the last 10, 15 years. So joining me today is probably one of the most experienced franchise consultants. How does he know what he knows? He's he's owned franchises, Dunkin' Donuts, currently one of my favorites, Jersey Mike's subs, which is incredible. I kind of got an addiction to it. So we talk about pet care as an emotional business because it is, I think, somewhat different. You know, I don't know if people get emotionally attached if you sell umbrellas or yogurt, but so the problem is here, I am emotionally attached to Jersey Mike's subs. But so I'm going to introduce my good friend and business partner. He works for Hounds Town now as a consultant, Mitch Cohen. Welcome to the Dish on Dogs.
Mike, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about your experience and what makes you what brings you here to us.
So I've been in franchising 37 years. I've spanned quite a bit of different areas of franchising, Dunkin' Donuts, Baskin Robbins, a company called Shea Chocolat, currently now Jersey Mike Subs, and also Sola Salons. So I'm in the service business, I'm in the food business, and at the end of the day, I'm in the people business. And my experience has led me into operations and understanding franchising and how franchisees think, because I am one. And then I'm able to help franchisors work with their franchisees, and their franchisees work with their franchisors to make a better business.
Right. So now you're familiar with Hounds Town, and we're maybe an emerging brand. Everybody has different names for certain things. And at the core, I think you would agree, the core of a solid, reputable franchise, its foundation and its support that it can provide franchisees. So when you look at, and one of the things I want to say about you personally and your team, Performax team, I want feedback of what we're doing wrong, not what we're doing right, because I ask the same things of the franchisees. I'm going to tell them what I think they're doing wrong. You know, it's assumed they're doing right. So I ask the same thing for your teams, and part of your team travel out to our location. I think Tam is out in Detroit now. And I want feedback. How important is this communication between franchisor and franchisee?
It's huge. It's the basis of any relationship, right? So to perform well, you have to know what you're doing wrong to get better.
Right.
So it's very important. And our job, working with you as a franchisor, is to let you know where your weaknesses are and opportunities so we can strengthen those. And we do the same thing with the franchisees. When we go into a location or talk to a franchisee, we're going to find out as much about them as we can, understand what their operations look like, and then match them up to your standards. And if they're not meeting your standards, put a program in place to help them get to their standards, to match your standards. We would do the same with you. When we sit down and talk about your organization and who the players are and what's going on, we're going to tell you where your opportunities are, and we're going to put together a plan to strengthen those opportunities to make HTU the best it could be.
Right. So I think a lot of times, and I'm a human, so I'm included in this group, self-awareness is a very unique thing, right? When I was 20 years ago, I thought I knew everything. And as I get older, I realize my strengths and weaknesses. How do you take a franchisee and they have the qualities we're looking for, but they can't reflect on themselves? And I own the fact that obviously we're not perfect, we're not right all the time, we miscommunicate, we make mistakes. That's baked into anything in life, human frailties. We make mistakes. But we try to be as transparent and communicative as possible. But it just frustrates me sometimes as the franchisor that we miss the mark sometimes. So I look for patterns. So right now we have 25 or 30 units. I don't know the exact number. So I look for patterns. And if I hear from 5 franchisees that there's a miscommunication or there's something wrong with us, I take that very seriously. We're very serious about making our brand the best that it is. But sometimes there's outliers. That's the way I describe them. And I have communications with people all the time, every day, franchisees. I like to call them spirited conversations from one entrepreneur to another. We're partners. And that's the other thing that I'd like to point out as we go. That franchising is a partnership. We're not selling anything. We're really engaged in a 10-year commitment. And almost every one of my franchisees, except with 1 or 2 exceptions, we've had spirited conversations. And they're adult, mature conversations, and we come to an understanding and we move forward as partners, and we have that ability to communicate. How do you respond to, as I say, those outliers out there that come into a system and they find out after 2 or 3 years, this isn't for them? I buy a Jersey Mike's, I do everything you tell me to do, and my expectations were greater than what I thought they were, even though you tell them, I'm sure, or the franchisor tells you. Say this really isn't for me. I don't want to do this anymore. How do you adjust to that?
So I think there's a couple of points that you bring out. One is this is a relationship that you'd entered into for whether it's 10 years or 20 years, depending on everybody's franchise agreement. In your case, it's 10 years. And there's going to be bumps along the road. It's growing pains for both the franchisee and the franchisor. In your case, if you hear the noise that you mentioned, right, with 5 or 6 or 7 different franchisees, you're going to take that very seriously and look into it, which is fine. Doesn't necessarily mean that's actually what's happening in the system. So you have to do your due diligence to make sure that you're not just reacting to a couple of noises. And if it is a true pattern, then we have to sit back and look at what is that pattern, where did we go wrong, and how do we fix it, right? On the franchisee side, what happens is most franchisees' expectations are way higher than what you've laid out for them, because otherwise you wouldn't want them to be in this business. You want them to shoot for the moon. The problem happens is when they don't reach that expectation so quickly, because they're thinking maybe I'm going to have X amount of dogs in 30 days. That number doesn't come realistic. And now all of a sudden they kind of curl up a little bit and get afraid. I risked my life savings. How am I going to manage through this? And the whole fear process starts to come into play. And from that point on, it's a battle uphill. So one of the things that I always recommend is set the expectations. The bar, I'd rather kind of under promise a little bit and over deliver so that everybody gets off to a good start and gets the understanding of that start. Now, the franchisees that decide after a short period of time, hey, this isn't for me, the best thing really is to find out, hey, is it really isn't for you, or is it that you're not ready to put the hard work in? Mm-hmm. If you're not ready to put the hard work in to get to where you need to go, then we need to have a different conversation. And maybe it's not the location, maybe it's not the marketing, maybe it's because you're not willing to be there and do what it's going to take. It took you a long time to build your business. You've been in this over 20 years. You know what it takes to start from zero. Some people have the expectations because I'm getting into a franchise, I'm not starting from zero, but we all start from zero.
Thank you.
And so when we get to that point, that's when the harder conversations take place. And really, it's sometimes best to part ways early on and give them an opportunity to move on with their lives so Hounds Town can move on and get another participant, another franchisee in that's willing to go through this life-changing event. Buying a franchise is a life-changing event. It's not like taking a job and going to work for somebody else. You got to be willing to put the time in hour after hour. And if you're not, and you decide that, hey, after 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock, I'm going home and I'm going to put my feet up, franchising is probably not the spot you want to be in to start with.
Right, completely. And we do, I think, a relatively good job vetting, but there's no 100% vetting system people just naturally. I try to put our best foot forward. So sometimes, I guess, the question I had with the previous franchise, the sales consultant who's experienced in it is this. We're dealing now with COVID-19, all kinds of crazy things. What do you tell to a franchisee that just is either just signed an agreement? So we have people over the entire spectrum. We have people that just signed an agreement. We have people that just signed their lease. And we have people that are almost to the end of their 10-year agreement. So, and everything in between. What do you tell? Obviously, the person that just signed the agreement, they came into this with open eyes. They know COVID-19. They know the world is really shifting. But what about, and I think you've spoke to this, we've spoke about this in one of your own business endeavors. What do you say to the person that just signed the lease on the beginning of March and the world shut? And now their anxiety, there's all kinds of anxiety. How do you talk them off the ledge?
Well, the fact is that this was an unknown crisis. We weren't prepared for it. So if I signed my lease in March and all of a sudden I shut down, you're probably in a better spot than somebody that was 3/4 of the way in, into their agreement and shut down, or on the back end, because you need time to rebuild your business, right? This shutdown, if you actually closed, is harder to reopen than if you didn't open and now you're finishing your building, you're starting your building, you're going to have a grand opening. You have the opportunity to come out of this much stronger because the lessons learned from the last 95, 100 days.
Right. So again, I don't know, so give me an idea of how your team deals with this. So everybody is in different places, emotionally, psychologically, financially. So that's a big task for a person like you. I go to bed every night. I think I do from my perspective. I go to bed every night thinking I've done everything that I possibly can do. Jackie, our president, and I, we haven't taken a salary. We have a bigger picture in mind of, we're going to make our money when there's 100 units. So, and I'm just saying that's my perspective. And I go to bed, I think I tell everybody the good, the bad, the ugly. I think on some level there's selective hearing. I'm not sure, people hear what I'm saying when we go to a discovery day, because we cover a lot of the things, the bad parts of franchising. So, and frankly, I've been told many times I shouldn't even be at Discovery Day because I'm telling people the worst things that can happen. Because we've dealt, in 20 years, I've dealt with hurricanes, recessions, depressions, floods, blizzards, you just about name it. So how do you make this a concise, like I said, even for yourself, when you select Jersey Mike's, Dunkin' Donuts, what are you looking for from the franchisor? And then conversely, what they should be looking at in you, Mitch, the franchisee.
So for the franchisor, I really look, again, it goes back to communications, standards, systems, the amount of franchisees that they have. And I talk to a lot of the franchisees to understand the relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee. And I think as long as you're crystal clear in trying to, on Discovery Day, explain the business, explain the hard work that has to be put in, the time, the effort, the financial commitment, all those things are necessary for the franchisee to understand. And sometimes it is selective hearing, right? Because I'm amped up. I like this product. I want to be a part of it. And so I'm only going to hear certain things that I want to hear. So it takes maybe one or two times of discussion to make sure. And I applaud you for saying, I went through the bad things. When somebody comes to me and they want to get into this business, regardless of the business, just franchising, I say, come visit me and spend a day in my shoes. Right. I'm going to show you what fires I have to put out on any given day. It's not all rosy. Right. So I want you to be prepared. And when I'm done with you, and we'll talk about all the bad things, if you're still interested in moving on from whatever it was you're doing into this business and franchising, more power to you. But I would feel bad if I didn't tell them all the bad things that they have to face, all the things that could make me nervous every day. That's what I want people to realize and know. On the flip side of that, as a franchisee, what I would be looking for is, one, somebody who's energetic, somebody who has some business acumen, somebody who is willing to roll up their sleeves and work all hours of the day and night to grow this business until they get to a point of they think they've reached financial satisfaction. But idea of franchising is to grow wealth.
Right.
And so until they understand how to grow wealth, they're just getting a job. And if they're going to buy a job, is that the person that you want in your system?
Right.
For you to grow to 100 stores, you need people that want to get to wealth.
Right, absolutely. And we think that, maybe we make that assumption. Some people don't. Some people are just content making X amount of dollars and they're not driven to open a second, third, fourth location. How do you address this? Because this is one of my biggest frustrations. If some people are good at, obviously nobody's good at everything. That's impossible. We think we are, right? We all pretty much think we can do everything and we're smarter than the next person. And I think you made this comment a while ago. The franchisees think they're smarter than the franchisor, and the franchisor generally thinks they're smarter than the franchisee. I try to remove that, honestly, and I am a big advocate of self-reflection and stopping and listening. And I tell Jackie, if there's a pattern, if two people say the same thing, we have to address that. But if one person says something that's way out of line, all right, let me go back. So there's finding a location, right? So that's the big stress point, finding the right location. Then the next one is signing a lease, a 10-year lease that many times represents $1 million if you kind of amateurize it over 10 years. And that's a big trigger point. Some people go through all of these things seamlessly. And then the grand opening occurs. This is another huge trigger point. Then we find sometimes, and this is more often than not, people get through the build-out process relatively well. It's actually running the business day to day seems the biggest stress point. And very frankly, more often than not, I see franchisees getting in their own way, overanalyze, overworking, and we talk, there's this concept you should be working on your business and not in your business. And, I look at franchisees and I say, if you're still working in your business after a year, and that's a long time, something's wrong. And if you find that you're creating drama, you're micromanaging your employees, this is kind of a business that once you understand it, it kind of runs itself. There's not a lot of drama. Drama and dogs are antithetical to one another. There can't be. You can't have human drama when you're trying to balance a pack of dogs. So my biggest frustration is, and these are wonderful people, by the way, and I want to say that, it's just funny to me that I can't pull them away from their business and say, go somewhere, get away. It happens to me. And I know this, I learned this because I get thrown out of my own lobby. Because I'm all amped up and I'm interjecting in conversations and I'm hovering around. My staff literally tells me, are you done yet? Can you please leave so we can get our work done, so we can tell the customers the real answers, not what you think the answers are? So it took me a while, like most people, to trust my employees and listen to them. And I think one of the failings of new franchisees, or maybe in general, is they don't trust their employees. They don't trust their employees. So and then they're over their shoulders, and that's just, it screws up everything. And in our business more than anything, it really affects the balance of our dogs. How do you respond to that?
So first I'll say that it goes back to self-reflection, and we all think we could do everything right, and nobody can do it better than the owner, right? And it's my investment, my savings, everything is mine. I learned a long time ago, actually, the first person that hired me in the franchise system, he had a soda shop, right? Where he actually used the soda pumps to make the soda. We're going way back.
Wow.
And he had a Baskin Robbins, and he would go in every night and he'd clean the syrup pumps out himself, and then he'd leave me in the Baskin Robbins. And I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Well, the soda shop closed. I'm going in to clean the pumps." I'm like, "Well, why are you going to clean the pumps?" He goes, "Well, no one does it as good as me." I'm like, "Well, have you given anybody a chance?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, if you give them a chance, like you gave me a chance, maybe they could do it as good as you or better." Right. So you've got to be willing to cut the cord at some point. Now, you're not going to do it on day one because you're learning and it's your investment, but you have to trust yourself as an owner and a leader to lead. And if you can lead your people, your crew, your staff, and put the right other leaders in place, your shift leaders, your store managers, you can slowly back out. But you need to set a time frame up for yourself to say, my goal is that when we get to a certain amount of occupancy, I need to back out because I need a staff member that can manage that occupancy. And maybe my job then is to do conversions in your business, right? And then as I get to conversions, then I can get my staff leader to get conversion. I can step away again. And I think you got to set it up in stages. And I don't think a lot of people go into business thinking, whether any franchise business, that they can just put down their money, start working a little bit, do the hard work up front, and then trust somebody, because they don't have that same investment. We try to work with our employees so that we make them part of the facility, and we make them feel that it's their facility.
Absolutely.
So that they take care of it as if it was their own, and we bring them in as part of a family, and we try to create that atmosphere. And just like a child growing up, as I start to raise my staff leaders up, I need to back away so that they can grow and flourish. So it's a state of mind, but it takes a while, because you got to remember, they just signed, like you said, maybe $1 million lease. They put up a lot of money for construction, and the nerve starts, and they need to micromanage for a little while.
Right. And I don't want to imply, you're absolutely right. And this is why Hounds Town, our franchising, is perfectly balanced. It's a mom and pop with the support of a corporation. That's really, to me, the draw. We have a marketing team. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on marketing, PR, folks like yourself, consultants to come in. So we have all those training wheels, so to speak. But I guess, 20 or 30 years ago, there was the idea, if the owner's not present, something's wrong. They want to see the owner. Where's the owner? You go to an old Greek diner, the guy's standing there, he gives you the menus. And that was a business model then, and that was absolutely correct to be there. And the diner owner knows every operational aspect of the business. He could cook if he has to. He knows everything. Today, in 2020, there's technology. I'm on my iPad or my iPhone, and I could look at 100 cameras right now of everything. And so technology has filled that void. And I literally, with dogs, we talk about separation anxiety. The human and the dog are so attached, they can't pull themselves away. And when they are, the dog has anxiety. So the same thing happens here in franchising, I think. So I literally go to franchisees and say, get out of the building, sit in the parking lot, as I would with separation anxiety for the dog. Sit in the parking lot, go on your iPhone, go on your cameras. You don't have to be hovering around your employees. It doesn't make them the best that they can be, because obviously they're your subordinates. So there's a complication. So what frustrates me the most is if I call a franchisee in 6 months after they open and invite them to dinner. I wouldn't do that, but invite them. I used to do that. I stopped doing that. It didn't, no. So I invite them to a seminar and they say, I can't, or they're picking up dog poop. If you're picking up dog poop after 6 months of operations, you're doing something wrong. You're not following our system or our model. I'm not suggesting you abandon it and move to Hawaii and just give a call every week to see how much money you made. That's not what I'm suggesting. But technology and the support system we have allows you to be semi-absentee. And do you think that's a good idea? How do you address that? So what's the downfall of being there 20 when you're at Jersey Mike's or standing around?
Well, you addressed it, right? If I'm micromanaging, I'm not letting the crew grow to be what they could be. In today's world, in my opinion, is employees want to flourish. Everybody wants to do a good job. They want to flourish. They want to have a purpose. And if you constantly are micromanaging them, it becomes very difficult. I mean, I could even talk about my son. He works for a sports team in the New York market. He is doing great, whatever he's doing, but then his superior comes in and spends a day in the office and everybody's stressed out and nothing's getting done. Right. So it's in every business. So the part about pulling back is, I think there's a balance, right? I think, quite honestly, every owner should know every aspect of the business, from whether it's making a cheesesteak, slicing a sandwich, whatever it is, or in this business, if it means cleaning up the yard or it means checking people in, whatever it is, you need to know the whole aspect of business so that you can train the people when they come in that you trust. But that doesn't mean that you have to be there. And I agree, technology is a good thing, but it could be a bad thing also. Because if you get stuck in front of the technology and then all you're doing is calling up going, hey, right, Sally, why did that person leave? And how come the dog didn't stay? Right. Now you're going to make them even more crazy. So I think there's a balance that you have to have. I also think that it's important for just the work-life balance as well, that you went into a business sometimes with your spouse or your partner, and that you need to have a life outside of whatever it is you're doing. And so you need to you need to incorporate into everything. But you have to understand, because it's your own business at the same time, and this is where it gets difficult, you have to be willing to do the hard things. So if it means answering an email at 11 o'clock at night,
Absolutely.
because there's a potential customer, you have to do it. I mean, I'll just back up to my own business. Tomorrow we have 500 subs going out in 3 locations. I'm delivering them because I don't have the staff to deliver it. If I didn't deliver it, we're not growing the business.
Right.
So there is a fine line, and you want your employees to be able to call you and say, hey, Mike, I've got something for you to do today. Can you help me out? Instead of you calling going, hey, Sally, I want you to do these 10 things today.
Right.
And then you stand there.
Right. Well, you hit the nail on the head. You used the word balance. That's what we talk about in our business, is balancing energy, balancing dogs, balancing employees. So yeah. So most definitely I have to know I can run this place by myself. I did a couple of weeks ago. I screwed things up, but I used it with forget technology. I used a piece of paper and pencil. I asked people what their dog's name was. When are you going to be back? So in the event, so I can do that, and I think it's advisable. This was a great episode. Let me just ask you this just real quickly. What do you think as Hounds Town as a brand, you see all kinds of, that's what your specialty is, analyzing and consulting. As a brand, we have a great, robust marketing team, robust training system. What do you think as a brand compared to our competitors or just in general? Where do we sit?
So, as you said, I think you're a little bit more than an emerging brand, but you're still in a growth pattern. You're at a point where the support staff is growing and learning a lot from you and Jackie. I think the franchisees coming out of this pandemic have learned a lot about how you can support them through times of crisis. And so I would say, compared to competitors whose businesses closed while you stayed open, shows, one, that you're a big part of the community, 2, that you care about your franchisees because you were there to support them during this time. And it would seem to me that this is a perfect fit as a relationship business. Working with you and Jackie and Corey and Corinne over the last several months, there's a passion around what you do. And it's not just about the dogs. It's about being as good as you could be and making this company as good as it could be and working with your franchisees to get them better. So I would say you rank pretty high on my spectrum. And I don't usually BS around things.
We don't want that.
I tell you the way it is. When you make a mistake, I let you know. So I would say that's where I see you guys fit. I think this is a big opportunity right now for Hounds Town and its clients to understand what you're doing in the community, what you did during the pandemic, and have your franchisees. You talk about dog anxiety separation. My wife's a teacher. When she goes back to work, if I don't find a place to put my dog, I'm going to be moving out because my dog's going to be running the house. Right. So here's a perfect opportunity to start talking about that and moving people into this business.
Well, I appreciate those comments, and just to point out, you're right. So many of our competitors just shut down. Either they were legally required to, or just for whatever reason they chose to shut down. Not only did we stay open, I've traveled all over the United States supporting our franchisees, and surprising to me, we have been doing these virtual discovery days, and we've awarded 3 territories just in the last 2 months, which I would have thought in a million years that wouldn't happen. And when I talk about Hounds Town, it's not about Mike Gould. It's about our team. So, and it's never the name of the franchisee. It's about Hounds Town. So as I said, we have these spirited discussions. It's not about the franchisee. It's about Hounds Town. And all our decisions are made. Our team is like crazy passionate. I can give you, hopefully you'll come back, because I can tell you stories about how crazy our support staff is. Corey and Corinne, the things they do that go above and beyond. No one would do what we do. So I'm very proud of that for them. But thanks again, Mitch Cohen, Performax. This guy's a genius. He is. He really is. But again, with age, you see, he's no spring chicken here. With age comes wisdom. So I'm an old fart. I learned over my life. So that's another important thing. I'm not a millennial, whatever the hell you call it. Spotify, YouTube, Xtube, Instagram, Facebook. Facebook is huge. You want to learn about Hounds Town USA? You go to Facebook, you're going to see more information, more videos. We have fun here at Hounds Town. Remember that. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.